The land run of 1889 brought major changes to the sweeping plains of the unassigned lands in Oklahoma Territory. Settlers built several thriving towns nearly overnight, one of them now known as Edmond.
Tens of thousands of people lined up to make the run. They called it Harrison's Hoss Race for President Harrison, who had signed the bill to open up the lands. Literally, in Edmond, you went from a population of 0 to thousands of people staking out claims and building a town on the prairie where there had been nothing before.
The land run brought a sense of hope and opportunity to build and grow. On April 22, 1889, everyone was eager and ecstatic to become landowners in this newly opened territory.
Edmond wasn't even a wide spot in the road. Edmond was not a whistle stop on the railroad that went through Edmond. If there hadn't been a land run, if this area had been settled the way other states have been settled prior to the advent of the land run, I don't know how you would have any idea of knowing what Edmond would be today, or if there even would be an Edmond.
It was touch and go early on in Oklahoma Territory, the communities that would thrive and the communities that would falter.
When the gunshots sounded.
It's a really interesting history if you think about it, that you could line up and make a mad dash and stake your claim.
Thousands of Oklahomans of all backgrounds hustled past one another to declare their property.
You know, they had people starting families here, so it was like born overnight, really, the city of Edmond.
Edmond became a place where dreams could come true. Business, education, and family would become priorities.
It's no place for their children to go to school.
Edmond leaders knew that according to the philosophy of the time, an educated population would make a better community and create more business. But building a schoolhouse for the community out of nearly nothing was going to be a challenge.
Before the schoolhouse was built, it was very rough. The soil was very rocky. There were no conveniences.
But a group of young women got together and decided to make the schoolhouse more than just talk.
The Ladies' Aid Society got together and they said, let's build a schoolhouse for the settlers' children. And so they worked really hard and raised the money.
After months of hard work and dedication, the schoolhouse finally opened their doors in September of 1889, only 5 months after settlers came to town. The first schoolhouse to be opened in the territory, and it still stands today, restored to its original appearance.
After the land run, there was a lot more people here, and there were more kids, and so I'm sure it had something to do with the thinking of building a schoolhouse so they could get an education as well.
The schoolhouse was built in a central location, making it easy for children to get to school.
The teacher had to really be creative in her teaching. She had to use a lot of raised arithmetic, oral math questions, and there was a lot of moral teaching.
While education was being provided for the youngsters, down the street, higher education was being proposed. On December 24, 1890, the territorial legislature voted to establish the Territorial Normal School, now known as the University of Central Oklahoma. But the vote to establish the normal school would not be an easy one. Certain conditions had to be met first. Money needed to be raised, and the city of Edmond had to donate 40 acres of land for the new school.
You had some incredible civic leaders that came to Edmond in the 1880s, and their dream was to establish a town.
And one of those great civic leaders would be Dr. John Howard. Howard came from Kentucky and established his home in Edmond. He practiced medicine and selling drugs. He was very educated in his profession and believed in higher education.
His aim was to secure one of those institutions, whether it be the university or the normal school. And after all of the political wrangling and a lot of promotion in the Edmond Sun, we did secure the normal school in Edmond.
The Edmond Sun played a key role in helping Edmond grow as a town. The Edmond Sun was established in 1889 by a man named Milton Reynolds. Reynolds came from the North, born in New York and educated in Michigan. After moving several times, Reynolds found himself in Edmond.
Milton Reynolds worked with Dr. Howard to get the word out to the community and to really rally the community members to ensure that the normal school would come to our community.
On December 25, 1890, the 40 acres needed was finally donated. 10 acres of it was carved out of Anton Klassen's farm, special for the school. The other 30 acres would be sold in order to raise funds for the normal school.
It's land that he'd acquired, and he signed it over to him.
Anton Klassen worked for Milton Reynolds as an editor at the Edmond Sun. Classen had moved to Edmond during the land run and later to Oklahoma City. Classen Boulevard in Oklahoma City would later be named after Anton Classen. He was an attorney who first moved to Guthrie, found there were too many lawyers there, and came to Edmond later, after the normal school was established. He became a developer in Oklahoma City. After a bitter battle in the territorial legislature, the normal school was founded in 1890.
The first one to hold classes was UCO. And the first one to have a permanent building and to hold classes was UCO.
On October 1st, 1891, Richard Thatcher would become the first president of the Territorial Normal School of Oklahoma.
Thatcher worked as a drummer boy during the Civil War. I believe he was 15 years old. And then he came to this part of the country, I want to say, he had been working for the census and he had some connections to Washington, D.C.
Exactly 1 month after Thatcher became president of the normal school, 23 students would meet for the first time. Buildings would not be completely finished at this time, so the first class met in the Epworth League Room at the First Methodist Church. Although Old North was not constructed yet, Thatcher was making other preparations.
And he went so far as to create some of the first desks that the students would use.
While students were inside busy learning, workers were outside busy building.
Back this way, there's a hill. On the right-hand side, there was a long brick house out there for a long time. North of that house is where they brought in these native rock to build these buildings.
Old North would be finished in the summer of 1892, but not be occupied by the first class until January 3rd, 1893.
Old North was the first building they built up there.
In 1897, the first graduating class consisted of 2 men and 3 women receiving their normal school diplomas. The 5 graduates were ecstatic to make normal school history. Higher education was of the utmost importance for the normal school, and the first graduating class gave Edmond the hope it needed.
Our academic mission is to help students learn so that they can become creative, ethical, and responsible citizens and leaders. And I think that mission has been with us since the 1890s, and it continues today.
In 1904, Territorial Normal School earned a new name, Central State Normal School. One great aspect of the Central State Normal School was Coach Wantland and his football team.
Wantland, for example, was active on campus, always walking around and including his students in a variety of different ways. I want to say early on he would have his students get in there and do a lot of cleaning and maintenance on campus at the same time to promote civic responsibility of his athletes.
Early on November 16, 1907, a proposal for a new state would finally become a reality.
Well, when they got everything all pretty well settled and everything, it became the 46th state in the Union. But they had certain population and certain guidelines before they could do that.
President Theodore Roosevelt would sign the Constitution for Oklahoma to become a state. Politics had a major hand in the decision to combine the 2 territories. Originally, the 2 states would be named Sequoia and Oklahoma.
The reason was this. President of the United States was Theodore Roosevelt. He was a Republican. The Republicans held only a 2 or 3 seat majority in the U.S. Senate. The feeling was that the 2 states would both come in as Democrat states and would elect a total of 4 Democrat senators, which would change the balance of power in the U.S. Senate.